Hey there, SHIRO listeners. Saturn Dave here, reminding you that you must play Sega Saturn, and that it's contributions from listeners like you that help keep this and our other shows hosted and available on demand, in addition to our website, SegaSaturnShiro.com, where you can find all of the most up-to-date news and information from around the Sega Saturn scene. If you'd like to show your support and gain access to several perks, visit patreon.com/Shiro Media Group to become a Patreon supporter. If a monthly donation isn't possible, no worries. We still value your support in liking and sharing our content on social media and joining our Discord community to become a part of the Saturn conversation. Thank you for being a loyal listener and a part of this great community. And as always, Saturn Dave here from Sega Saturn SHIRO, and today we're pulling from the SHIRO archive an interview with TJ Davis, the vocalist on the Sonic R and Metropolis Street Racer soundtracks. This interview was recorded on August 26th, 2020, and the SHIROs who conducted this interview are myself, Patrick Traynor, and Peter Malik. This interview has been uploaded for archival purposes and may be used with permission. We hope you enjoy.
So without further ado, TJ Davis. Hello, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Really excited to have you on. We've been talking about it for a while. Like, wouldn't it be great if we could get TJ Davis on? And at one point, it was just something we were throwing out there. And so it's kind of amazing that we were able to get you on the cast. I mean, for anybody who might not know that name right off the top, she is renowned for doing the amazing vocal tracks on the Sonic R soundtrack, as well as Metropolis Street Racer with Richard Jacques. And she also has a huge back catalog of working with several different artists. So yeah, we're going to take some time to talk to her about her career and then just her work with Sega and what she has planned for the future and just a few other things. So
it's a pleasure to do it.
Yeah, I think we should start off with your favorite music artists and inspirations.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I suppose oh gosh, there's so many. That's really, really difficult, actually. I mean, I always wanted to sing. I followed an awful lot of singers. I went all the way through music college and then moved to London and started working with bands and doing different gigs, trying to get back in vocal work and then lead vocal work as well. I was always I'm a big pop fan, and you probably can tell from the Sega songs anyway. But I love all styles of music. I used to listen to lots of old sort of soul singers, jazz singers. Massive fan of singers like Aretha Franklin, Ella Fitzgerald. But then also my idols are, later on, people like Kate Bush, Annie Lennox, Alison Moyet, singers like that as well. Debbie Harry, a massive idol of mine. But I always wanted to sing, and so that's what I did, really. Moved to London when I was 21.
Was that Jump the Gap?
Oh, and that was a band we started when I first moved down to London with my friend David, who I still work with now. He's actually the keyboard player in Gary Newman's band. We moved down to London together. Gosh, this is going back a long time ago now. Did all the club venues and the pubs and everything in London like you do, and just, wanting to sort of meet an awful lot of people in the industry, really. And then it sort of goes from there. It was before, obviously, the days of the internet that you could look things up and find out when auditions were happening. And in those days, you got a newspaper or it was word of mouth. Somebody tell you, at a gig or something or a live music night, oh, this audition happening and this is happening. And it went from there, really.
So that was the original networking.
Yeah, it was.
You mentioned the keyboardist was the connection to Gary Newman, right?
Yeah.
How do you get from Jump the Gap to Car Wash and then to World of Leather?
Oh my goodness. You really, really have done your research, haven't you? Well, Jump the Gap was our first band when we first moved to London, when we got a band together. And I was fronting that band. And then at the time, I was wanting to sort of, meet as many people in the music industry as I could. So I'd started going to different auditions. World of Leather with 15 guitarists and 2 drummers, would you believe it? I just did some backing vocals for a little while. I was doing that. And there were just lots of different things at the time, lots of bands. The music scene was, very, very busy. It was quite saturated in London with lots of different bands, but there were loads of venues, so it was brilliant. It's not as much anymore. And then from there, I had a manager who wanted to steer me in a bit of a different direction. He saw me as a bit of a ballad singer, which is something I absolutely do love. I love to be that sort of torch style singer as well. But I also wanted to get to know a lot of the music industry. I think I wanted to do a bit of everything, to be honest. And then my first big tour was Gary Newman. I was his backing vocalist in '93. After that, I think that opened quite a few doors for me, really, because I got to know an awful lot more musicians, producers, still doing my own stuff as well. But it took a little bit of a back burner at that point because I think, to be honest, I was just really enjoying myself. So I was just having great fun doing lots of backing vocals. And then D-Ream came after that. And I was with them for a couple of years. And it was through D-Ream that I actually found out about the Sega job. The girlfriend of the percussionist in D-Ream went to college with Richard Jakes. And she said, a friend of mine is looking for a singer for a game. And I'm, my brother's a big gamer, actually. But I didn't really know much about it. But I was like, great, sure, I'll go and meet him. And that's where it came from. He got me to do just one song, and we did a demo, and he played it to the big bosses, and they loved it.
Nice. So what I imagine it must be interesting because I think that's around the time where the Red Book audio and sort of the vocals were becoming a big thing and more orchestral soundtracks compared to the dips and boops. So it's like, were you thinking like, are they going to like digitize my voice or something? Or are they going to like decompress it?
No, the only thing they did at the time, I mean, me and Richard, he was very similar to me. He's very, very musical, came from that musical background. So he was very much, he had a real idea of what he wanted to sound like. It was a racing game. It was a pop game. So the only thing he ever did was really track my voice. And then we do a few backing vocals here and there as well. But we worked really well together. It was quick, I think, because he knew exactly what he wanted. And that was good for me too. But I just never expected it to blow up like it did, to be honest. I just, it was amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Was that before or after you worked with Blur?
Blur was just, I'm just trying to think now. It's the timeline of it. I can't actually remember. I think Blur came just before I did the Sega game. Because I think the Blur was in '95. Funnily enough, that song has just been played on the radio, which is bizarre. Played
what
about.
Song is that, if you don't mind me asking?
I did the Universal on the Great Escape album. Right. So I worked with Blur with my my sort of singer mate at the time. We were doing quite a lot of backing vocals round and about London for people like Zig Zig Sputnik and Mark Almond from Soft Cell. We were doing quite a few, and I just got a call from the producer saying, could you come down and do? And I thought it was a joke. I didn't actually believe it because at the time Blur were just this massive band. Mm-hmm. And I thought somebody was joking on the phone. I didn't believe it. And I started laughing and nearly put the phone down.
Did you ever get to meet Damon Albarn in the group?
I did. Well, I was with the band in the studio when we did it, and Damon was in the recording booth with me and Ange, my partner in crime and my singer friend, when we both did the vocals. And he sang it how he wanted it, even down to the accent of the song as well, how he wanted it to sound. So yeah, all the band were in there with the producer Stephen Street.
Nice, that's really cool. I'm a big fan of Blur and the Gorillaz myself, so that's kind of cool to hear.
Oh, it's just, you know what, they're amazing. What fabulous writers, honestly, just such a good band.
So you had mentioned how it was that you sort of heard about the job, to do the stuff for Sega, and you ended up getting to meet Richard. So talk to us a little bit about what that was like. So you said you made a demo tape, and
yeah, it had it was Supersonic Racing. The first, I think it's the first track, isn't it? And we just did he played me something. We went into the studio and I sang it, and then he had to play it to the bosses. And they came back and they loved it. And at that time, I wasn't sure whether they were going to use, they could have actually got somebody else in to sing it, I suppose, a name artist or something, because I wasn't really well known or anything. So to be able to, they trusted Richard with doing the rest of the album. They said, love it. They thought my voice fitted the tracks. So that was great. And that was it, really. That's where it all started.
That would have been 97, I think.
It was later, yeah.
So they made it's my understanding they did the Sonic Racing, the Supersonic Racing demo for the E3 reveal. And they also partnered it with a Japanese Christmas ad featuring the game and the Sagata-san SHIRO character. And Yuji Naka, who was developing the game, he liked your vocals so much that he requested that you be featured over the entire soundtrack. And actually, Sega during the Saturn generation, Sega did actually bring in quite a lot of quote unquote no-name artists that ended up doing amazing jobs on like the Burning Rangers soundtrack. And so that was kind of typical if they went outside their own sound teams to get artists that, they could just have like these new artists that would end up having like big careers following.
Yeah. It is really good. I mean, they could have gone for a name artist, couldn't they? But they didn't. They trusted me to do it, which obviously was a big honor for me. And it was great to do. Honestly,
when I first heard it for the first time, I thought it was Gloria Estefan.
That's a nice compliment.
And I mean, I keep listening to it and I'm like, seriously, she's got the same chops as Gloria Estefan.
That's really nice. A few people have actually said I sound a bit like her, to be honest. I've had that before, so that is a huge compliment. Thank you.
But I think it's when you're doing a certain thing. Like I've heard you in other things that you've recorded where you're going for something different, and so I would say you can sound like her, but you don't necessarily always sound like her.
Well, Richard had a definite sound for it's a racing game, of course, as you know. And it was quite a hard vocal in a way. I mean, a lot of the time I have to sing a lot softer, but it was something that had to be really quite punchy. I mean, down to even when I was doing, because I did all the little voiceover bits and I'm from the north of the country, and I say certain things like dance instead of dance. And little bits I had to change to make it sound a certain way as well. So, I mean, that was, so he had a definite vision of how he wanted it to sound. And we just happened to work really, really well together. And we stay in touch to this day, and we've met up, and, it's great. So I'm really, really hoping that when everything opens up again, we are going to do more stuff together, because I'd love to do that.
And it's Jakes, right? I heard you say Richard Jakes.
Jakes, yeah.
It means I've been pronouncing it wrong this whole time.
Don't worry, I'm sure he doesn't mind. I think a lot of people say Jax, actually.
Right. Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, what were your fondest memories of that time working with him? For the week, I guess, that you spent in the studio.
Well, we'd have a giggle. I mean, it was very much, at the time with the first one, Sega didn't have a studio set up at the offices where they were based. So we were when we were actually recording it properly, once we'd gone through all the songs and I knew, roughly what I was doing, we went to Metropolis Studios in Chiswick in London. Oh, and we just had a ball. It wasn't just, it was us. There was a producer, there was an engineer, there was everybody. And we just had a fabulous time recording it, really. It was fun. It was a giggle. We had the game sometimes on the, the screen, so we could see how it was all going to work. And it was great fun to do, really. I just really enjoyed it.
So something that I had an interest in is you mentioned that you actually had to change some accents in the way you said stuff. And I noticed that a lot with a lot of British singers, that they'll sort of sing American, I guess, with American pronunciations. I guess the only one I can think of off the top of my head is like Rick Astley. I was curious, is that like a common thing where that
I think it's just, I think sometimes it's the way you sing a song, really. We do tend to sort of Americanize it a little bit, don't we? I mean, you'll get some singers that don't at all. They'll stay with their, if they've got a really strong accent, that will come out. But I just think in the way that you sing, sometimes you do tend to change a few of the notes. And whether it's just I don't even know whether it's we sort of even notice that we're actually doing it sometimes. I never realized that maybe I have got a bit of an American accent when I sing, but I have. And
you mentioned a lot of your idols are like Aretha Franklin.
Yeah,
if you grow up listening to popular music and they're American singers, you might be subconscious about the fact that you're doing it.
Absolutely. And also, I suppose you want it to be, it's like if we talk about ABBA, obviously Swedish, but the way they sang, they did sound, they got rid of the real Swedish accent because they could sound quite folky, but to make it sound poppier, they sang with a little bit of an American accent. And maybe that's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
I don't think it's done consciously sometimes. I definitely, for me, it was just the way that I sang, I suppose.
Yeah. Because I know a lot, of like artists like were that at least like the Beatles, for example, they like a lot of like American like rock and roll music, and I thought a lot of them might sing that way.
Exactly. If you listen to any of them, I mean, they never really sang with the Beatles didn't sing with a Liverpudlian accent, did they?
Yeah, I think the most of it was like some of the later stuff, but like towards the earlier stuff and the more rock stuff, it sort of sound more Americanized. So I just thought it was I was just curious because I wasn't sure if there was like an active thing where it's like they're trained to sing more Americanized. Or...
I actually wonder whether sometimes without even thinking about it, maybe it's because it became quite a universal thing to do. So to make it more easier on the ear, I suppose, just to maybe, or even when you're singing, you're drawling certain words or songs, not drawling, that's probably a wrong word, but you're changing a little bit just to maybe fit the tune and fit the song itself. I don't know, but then you do get other singers that don't do that. But it's very hard to when you find out where somebody comes from, it can be quite difficult, can't it? Sometimes you've no idea. If you think of, with like Lewis Capaldi, I don't know whether is he quite huge over in America now because he's a massive star here. But he's Scottish, and I can't hear his Scottish accent when he sings. I'm
mildly familiar with him, but I know what you mean. Yeah. I'm curious though. You mentioned Metropolis Studios. Was the and probably not even related, but the Metropolis Street Racer session, was that the same session or like
No, we did that about a year later, and by then Sega had their studio set up at the offices, so I did all that there instead.
Oh, okay.
Richard was still there working, so he actually had a whole full studio set up, and we did all Metropolis Street Racer over there.
So was Richard fairly consistent throughout the recording session with what he wanted, or did his sort of vision, or did anything at all sort of morph or change as you guys were progressing?
I don't think so. I don't think anything really changed. I'd say that it was, I think he definitely knew, and he was following guidelines of how they wanted it to be, but it was all him really. He had an idea. He'd written all these songs and he knew exactly how they wanted it to sound. Obviously I'd put a few ad libs here and there, and he'd let me sort of, if I had an idea, of course he'd listen to it and see if it fit, but it was all him. He knew exactly what he wanted for the game itself.
Yeah, I was reading an article, I think it was Gama Sutra. It was talking to Richard about where he was coming from with the lyrics, and I guess he had a conversation with Yuji Naka, and Yuji Naka was very specific about the fact that he wanted it, while he wanted it to be English vocals, he still wanted it to retain that kind of sugary J-pop feel, which was hugely popular in Japan at the time, and still is to some extent. But in the 90s, J-pop was really, really big, and the more sugary, the more just optimistic the music was, the better. They weren't really focused. So he wrote all those lyrics himself. Is that correct?
It had to be catchy. It had to be be one of those that you would sing back.
Mhm.
Certain ones, things like "Can You Feel the Sunshine?" Obviously, it's one of those songs, isn't it? That once it's in your head, it's in your head,
Mhm.
and that's it. So, but yeah, no, he did. He did the whole lot.
And he didn't want to bother creating different music for different markets, because some markets like Japan, obviously, or even the UK, might have responded really well to the music, whereas other markets might have opted for no vocals. So he put that in. He put in an option to turn off the vocals, which I think ruins the game because, like, the soundtrack, yeah. Your tracks are one of the best things about the game, honestly.
Oh, I've had a few people actually. Somebody did ask me a while ago. They said, "How do you feel when people say, they prefer to play the game without your vocals?" And I just thought it's fair enough. I don't mind. It's if they want to. I'm not going to get offended if it might. Maybe a vocal sometimes puts people off when they're playing the game. I've no idea. So, but that's not. I wasn't offended in any way. So that was okay.
I said a quick question. Speaking of "Can You Feel the Sunshine?" There's one lyrics. There's one section. I think it's after the chorus where it's like, "When the sun goes down, I feel like I'm waiting." Is that it's not like it's a different voice. Is that you doing it a little bit lower? Or is that somebody else that did that?
No, as far as I know, it's all me, unless they added something in later that I haven't heard. But no, I think it's me.
I gotcha. I just want to make sure. It sounded a bit different when it was like, I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, where it's like it's really low and it sounds like a higher pitched voice.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. There's a filter on there that does kind of make her sound. It's almost like there's less bass, and he almost put you through like an envelope filter or something. So
Okay.
Yeah. But definitely, it's tricks, studio tricks.
I guess it sounded really different, so I wasn't sure if there's another backing person on there or something.
No, as far as I know, unless they brought somebody in later, but I don't think so. I think it was all me and just me doing the backing vocals as well.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
To be fair to the industry at the time, it was really unheard of to have a soundtrack behind the gameplay that would have live vocals. At the time, that there wasn't a whole lot like that. Even the Wipeout series, which was a really popular racing series, had like more electronica stuff going on in the background.
Yeah.
Like the Prodigy and the Chemical Brothers, but nothing with like full on vocals. So I think maybe subconsciously it was hard to get used to for some folks at the time. But I really do think that for this game, it just for some reason it really works.
Yeah, it does actually. I mean, listening back to him when I listen to some of the songs, and I get things sent to me on Twitter a lot as well. I mean, watching I had one recently with Shaquille O'Neal, the big sportsman in obviously your country, who's now a DJ, and I didn't know he's known as DJ Shaq. I was unaware, I have to say, but somebody had sent me him playing "Can You Feel the Sunshine?" and that just blew up for me, because when I mentioned that I was the singer on it, I had so many lovely messages and people saying how much those songs, they still listen to them now when they're on their way to work and years later, and it got them through, as I think, because it was so positive and they were so up, all those songs. It seemed to get people through a really rough time in their lives as well, which for me as a singer, and I'm only singing them, I didn't write them, it was such a lovely thing to hear. It's really nice to know that they've meant so much to so many.
Yeah, and it really set up the precedent of like Sonic's sort of musical, I guess the musical identity of it is that the whole full vocal tracks and great singers on it. So I guess it was sort of that. It was that stepping stone almost. I don't know if you guys sort of can see that.
Definitely, yep. Absolutely. It was definitely a little unprecedented, but it established a precedent for a lot of things moving forward, I think. And those tracks are pretty timeless, if you ask me. Now, I know I'm kind of biased. I'm a Sega fan and I love Sonic Racing, and everyone here does. So you're in good company. And I know that this game isn't for everybody. It had kind of tough controls, and it was a little divisive at the time of its release, because what the Sega crowd wanted was a traditional Sonic game. Instead, they got this racing game. But I actually think that really it is a great game, and it has a lot of character, and the music really just adds to that character. Without these tracks, I think I wouldn't feel the same way about it for sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no,
That's nice to hear.
Yeah, no, I have to say that I think my favorite part of Sonic art is actually the soundtrack.
If they ever release it on vinyl, Pat, did you say they did release it on vinyl?
No, but I want them to.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'd like them to as well. Actually, we have actually. I mean, I'm always saying to Richard that it'd be lovely. I mean, he's incredibly busy at the moment, recording lots of different things at the moment. But we are hoping to do something together. I'd actually really like to revisit some of these songs and maybe do new versions of them, just to release. Just to get together and do them again. We've done a few concerts, if you like, together. We did a convention, and then
right, Summer of Sonic.
That's it. And we also did it's like a Sonic by candlelight in this church, and we did a few of the songs there, and I did a couple from Metropolis Street Racer as well, and that was really lovely. Just doing a bit of a stripped down version of the songs as well, because they do lend themselves to that, which was really nice.
With Metropolis Street Racer, it was a little different situation where, if I understand correctly, there were like radio stations, right? And each radio station had several different tracks that you can flip through, kind of like the Grand Theft Auto series. And you basically were like the pop radio station. And I think you recorded something like 10 tracks for that game. And I've only just recently, I knew I Can Still Believe and Am I Only Dreaming? But all these other tracks, Don't Wait, Time, You Can Love Me, It Doesn't Really Matter. All these tracks are actually really great, and I'm only just listening to them now, because playing the game, you don't really hear. You hear like a number of different tracks, a variety of different tracks. But yeah, so can you tell us anything about those sessions?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a bit different, because obviously with Sonic racing the tracks, they were all very much, we knew exactly how they were going to be, but Metropolis Street Racer, that took a lot more, because we had to think about the different styles, and it was also at one point it was, is it going to be okay for me to try and do this? Are they going to have to bring other singers in to maybe try the other styles? It didn't have to sound different, but it did, if you know what I mean. It just, as if there were other people singing it. So I found that one harder. It was great. It was still really good fun to do, but I actually found that harder to do because of that, really. But I Can Still Believe, I think, is that's probably my favorite, actually, from that soundtrack, because it's just a lovely, lovely song.
Yeah, a couple of those tracks that you did actually do sound like somebody else. And I thought it was somebody else. And then I listened for a while and I was like, okay, it's her, but she's like doing a different voice. Like
I had to do a different name, because I was signed by this point to a band I'd started working with, and we'd signed a record deal. And when they asked me to do another one, they were a little bit reluctant for me to have my name on something else at the time. To be honest, it wouldn't have really mattered, everybody knew it was me anyway. But I went under the name of Helena Davison, I think it was, just still having the Davis, and Helen is a name that I've got in my name anyway. But then a few people said, well, that's obvious, it's still her. So I don't really know why we did that, but it was to keep the record company happy at the time.
That explains all of the incorrect discography listings online. There's so much discrepancy between different sites, and I'm like, who is this Helena person?
So I'm hoping we can set the record straight with this, because we can. I'm already getting a Wikipedia entry together for that Blur song, because I looked on there and it looks like you weren't credited in there. So
it's not on Wiki, but it's on their all their credits on their different things. But it does say Teresa Jane Davis, which is my full name. So.
Gotcha.
Okay, I have to ask you, Richard Jakes, he recorded a track for Sega Touring Car Championship called So High. And there's a female vocal on that, and it sounds like it could be you, but you're not credited. So I'm just wondering, did you record anything for that game?
Was that before or after we did the Sonic stuff?
Oh man, it would have been.
They would have been really close together, those two.
Yeah.
I can't recall it. I don't think it was me.
Okay.
Don't think so. But there was one actually recently. Somebody said it was me, and it was somebody that he'd worked with just before me, a lady called Debbie, somebody or other. And I had to set the record straight on that one because I was getting all these likes and retweets, and I thought, well, that's not fair because it's not fair to Debbie because it wasn't me.
Yeah.
So I said, oh no, actually that's not me. But I don't remember that one, so I think that must have been somebody else.
Cool.
Gotcha. Yeah. One of the things I thought was interesting about specifically the track Supersonic Racing is how popular in the mainstay it is, and not only Sonic, but I mean, I don't know if you ever heard of the Super Smash Brothers games at all.
No, I haven't.
But you were actually featured on 3 of them. On this, there's a Sonic level where you can. It's like a fighting game, and the track Supersonic Racing is featured in 3 of them: Super Smash Brothers Brawl, the 4th one, and then the newest one that came out. And that's actually a track you can actually get. So I thought it was really interesting how that track's really, I guess, really sort of set, and that's set for Sonic, and that have that is still in the mainstay. How do you feel about sort of that?
I think it's great. I mean, it's so lovely. Who would have thought after all this time? I definitely didn't. I didn't, understand how successful it was going to be. And I mean, the fact that every single day I pretty much answer a question on Twitter about, one of the songs, or somebody sends me something and everybody loves it so much. I mean, what a great thing to be able to be part of. So I'm really proud. I'm proud that it's out there and it's still being played. It's brilliant.
Have you played the Sonic game yourself, or are you a fan, or not so much?
Did you ever get a chance?
I always get asked that, and I have to tell the truth. No, I haven't. I wasn't really into. My brother was, like I said, a massive gamer, and he could not believe it when I got involved because he's thinking, "Oh, you know nothing about games whatsoever. How on earth have you managed to get that job?" And he thought it was hysterical. But no, I haven't actually played the game. I'm really sorry.
That's cool.
It would probably just frustrate you.
Yeah,
the controls are a little naff.
I'll be really honest. If I did play it, I'd probably turn my vocal off.
Yeah.
we'll get a Saturn to you at the next convention or something, and we'll get some fun little event going.
Oh, do you know, it would be so lovely to do another one of those. I had such a nice time at the London one. I have been invited over a few times to different ones, but not quite managed it yet. But and obviously with everything going on at the moment, there's not much chance of anything like that happening, is there? But
yeah,
hopefully in the future.
Absolutely. Could you talk a little bit about that 2008 event, the Summer of Sonic? There's not a whole lot online about it.
Really? I mean, there's a few sort of bits, isn't there? Because who was the singer? There was another singer as well, wasn't there, that I did it with? I can't remember his name.
Oh, let's see. Was it Bentley Jones?
That's it, of course. I knew it would come to me. It would have come to me eventually. I'd made a joke to Richard that he was saying about the Sonic convention. I said, you aren't going to ask me to dress up as the hedgehog, are you? Because he used to always joke that that's what I'd have to do if I came to do one of the conventions. And instead, I got there and they had all these T-shirts, and I thought, oh, you know what, that'd be great if I wore one of the Sonic T-shirts. And everybody was really happy that I'd done that. It was lovely. It was a really lovely thing to do. There was just, we had a bit of a backing track, and Richard playing the piano and me singing, and then Bentley did a couple, and it was just, I don't know, it sounds a bit corny, but a lot of love in the room. I met lots of people, and everybody wanted to, talk. They had their story, and it was just so nice to see so many people together and enjoying the same thing. Really, it was lovely, and I'd definitely do another one if I had a chance.
Yeah, that would be awesome for you to do like a E3 or something like that.
As a big fan of ABBA, what would you say your favorite ABBA song is to sing, and which one is your favorite to listen to?
Oh, that's a good question. Singing is actually one that it wasn't released as a single, but we actually do it in our show called One Man, One Woman, and it's a beautiful song. It's really, really lovely song. To listen to, actually to sing as well, is Name of the Game, probably.
Oh, those are solid ones.
I absolutely love Name of the Game. That's probably my favourite. Either that or Chiquitita, because it's just beautiful to sing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my family are big ABBA fans, so we always have them. We're always watching Mamma Mia and listening to stuff. So I always love the ABBA. I'm not like the biggest massive fan, but I still love. They got some solid tracks and they're good stuff.
Oh, absolutely amazing! Again, and they're the hardest songs to sing out of all the gigs that I do. That gig is probably the hardest. Those girls, the way that they push their voices, and in typical fashion, Dancing Queen is the biggest hit, and it's always the one at the end, and it's the hardest one to sing. And by the time you've done a 2-hour show and you're right at the very end,
Your voice is shot.
Oh, that's actually you're really having to try and find some sort of strength to do that one, but you can't miss it off, of course. So that's quite a difficult one. But it's and as much as I absolutely love singing those songs, it is actually nice sometimes to come away from it and do different things as well. So. That's what I'm hoping to do next year when everything gets up and running again.
Hopefully you guys will come stateside and we can see some cool ABBA tributes.
Oh, that would be really good, actually. I'd love to. We were supposed to be coming over in August to do a private show, and of course everything got cancelled anyway, which was a shame.
Yeah, all the conventions I usually go to, everything's like canceled, all the shows, concerts. It's like, what a bummer, but is what it is,
Yeah, of course, and it's got to be safe, and live music can't open up until we can actually have people close together, because it's too hard for everybody to, a lot of people, there's an awful lot of people involved, and people have got to be able to earn a living from it. And if you can't have festivals with people in together or anything like that, or even in venues, it's not going to work. So let's fingers crossed with that vaccine, really.
Really quick question about working with Richard. Was it basically all business, or was it really casual? Did you guys have fun together? Like, was it, what was the atmosphere like?
Yeah, we did. We used to, we'd finish a sort of a day's either rehearsal or recording and whatever we were doing, and then we'd go and have dinner, and then we go out for a drink, and then and there were also a lot of things I got invited to after we'd done the so when the sort of the big bosses, and you said the name earlier,
Yuji Naka.
they came over. There was this big it was at Chelsea football ground. I remember going and meeting quite a few of them then. There's this really fabulous night that I was invited to, and I used to get invited to sort of lots of these different events, which was really lovely, really, really nice to be part of that. So I used to see Richard quite a lot socially as well, which was lovely because we did get on really, really well.
I'm just curious, going back to 1994 with Shiva. This is all going to connect eventually, but with Shiva, you had Let There Be Love, and that was an electronic kind of house style track. Was that your break into kind of the electronic dance kind of thing, or were those bands we mentioned before, like Car Wash?
Yeah, no. Well, Car Wash, that was all covers bands. So Car Wash was a 70s music band. The into dance would have been D-Ream. Now, D-Ream were a big hit, and they had big number one hit, quite a few hits actually, when I joined them in 94.
Okay.
And they had a big hit that the Labour Party, when they won the election in 97, they used the song Things Can Only Get Better. That was the really big hit. But it was D-Ream when I first went into. I'd started to do a little bit of recording that with different people. I was asked to sort of guest vocal on dance tracks, and I'd also done one for Full Monty All Stars called Brilliant Feeling, which I think was quite a big hit in Australia. Did really well over there. Didn't really do much in the UK. Don't think it was released in America. And so from then, and then I went for an audition with D-Ream, but that was backing vocals.
So then you had Gary Newman with Dream Corrosion, right?
Well, Gary Newman was before then. So that was
before. Okay, I got my timeline wrong.
And then Shiva had just very sadly lost their lead singer. She was killed in a hit and run accident. And they were thinking, do we disband or do we get a new lead singer? And they'd seen me with D-Ream, and their management talked to our management, and that's when I went to meet the boys, and we started. I was with Shiva for about a year, and that's when we were doing all lots of the big festivals and lots of mainly sort of dance, big club gigs and things. But unfortunately, we didn't release anything. It didn't actually do as well as we hoped. we actually got back together again last year to do a festival over here, which was wonderful. I absolutely loved it because I really enjoyed doing that as well. And I am now back. I'm back with D-Ream as well. D-Ream are back together, and we're doing a new album at the moment.
Cool. So what? You probably can't talk about that, or can you talk? So you can tell us what it's called, the new album?
No, I can't. Well, okay. I'm just the backing vocalist on this, so I don't know exactly what's happening. And of course, with lockdown, we're all dotted around. You know, the two guys, one's over in Ireland, another one's in Birmingham, and I every now and then they'll just send me something through. I have to go and then record some vocals and then send it back to them. So we're doing it all remotely, really. But they're just starting. But we've got we should have quite a few gigs next year. We had a lot this year, but lots of festivals, and that was a bit disappointing that all got cancelled, but it is what it is. But yes, next year we're supposed to be doing quite a lot of stuff, which will be great.
So do you actually have a home studio, or do you go to like a studio that's nearby and just record some vocals?
I actually want to have a home studio. My plan was, when we got into lockdown, like everybody, you have all good intentions, don't you? And I thought, right, you know what, I'm going to set up, I'm going to start doing this properly, and I haven't. But I do there's people that I know nearby that can actually record my vocals for me. So I've managed to do that with a bit of social distancing in between, and do a bit of vocals there. But I might have to work from home for quite a while. So I'm thinking of getting a setup that I can actually do that, because it'd be good for me to do, because I do still write. I've been listening to a lot of old stuff that I did that I've never released. And that would be my plan for next year. I'd really like to try and release some stuff if I can.
That'd be great. Yeah. I know a lot of people, especially voice actors in the States, have their own little studios. Like they have like a Shure, was it the SM7B, that little dynamic mic, I think.
Okay. It's something that I've always said I do, but I think because I'm always gigging, I'm a live, I'm a live girl, really. I've never really got round to it, but it is something that I would really like to do. And I think that's the way it's probably going to go in the future anyway, just for now, until we can open up again.
I really like your solo single from 2001, The Wonderful Life. That hit pretty high in the UK charts, right?
No, it
was a modest success.
It did really well in the dance charts.
Oh,
it did ever. It got an awful lot of radio play, but they released it just before Christmas, and probably not the best time. But it hit about, I think it was 42 in the UK charts. So I was hoping it'd do better. But it's a cover of Black. The artist was called Black's Wonderful Life.
Oh, okay.
And if you have a listen to that, so it's stunning. His beautiful original version, and I just really, really love the song, so I'm glad that I did a version of it anyway.
And then you recorded with Sasha Leperson. Was that Sash? That was the one where you recorded in Egypt, right?
That's right. Yes. Yeah. I did that. That was good. What
was that like?
Oh, going to Egypt was amazing. Yeah, that was absolutely fantastic. We actually filmed the video in a pyramid, which was just stunning. It was absolutely gorgeous. It was all quite crazy. It was all so rushed, and we had only a couple of days there, and then I was going home to carry on. I was on a tour at the time with somebody else, and but that was lovely to be asked to do that, to do the album. Was really good, actually. I just did a couple of songs, but Believe was the one that I think they released over in Germany. It didn't get released in the UK, though, for some reason.
But that's you in the music video, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yes.
So which of the Sonic songs that you sang is your favorite, or is that even not a thing? You like them all equally?
Gosh, I was thinking about this the other day. Well, from Metropolis, it was I Can Still Believe. I think from Sonic, I mean, obviously I know Can You Feel the Sunshine really well. I do like Living in the City.
My favorite.
And there's another one somebody mentioned the other day, and I thought,
Diamonds?
That's a really lovely track. That's very up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really, really up. And then the last one as well, the final track. Somebody had put it on my timeline on Twitter the other day, and I remember thinking, oh God, I really like that one.
Wait, is it Back in Time or Work It Out?
It'll be Back in Time. That's the one. Yeah, I did think that was the name, but I didn't want to get it wrong. So yes, I really like that one. So yeah, I think Richard really likes. I think Living in the City is one of his favorite ones that he did, and a lot of people don't mention that one. So it's he's really thrilled when people mention that one.
So when I play the racing track where the Living in the City plays, it like at first it didn't seem to make sense to me, and I couldn't get into it. But then eventually, when the game itself clicks and you're able to play it well and properly, suddenly the music just goes so well with the track, and it's fantastic. So I think it's definitely my favorite out of all the Sonic ones, and it's just such a nice track.
No, it is. It is really good, actually, and it's been really nice just to, like I said, with DJ Shack playing some, and then a few people have been sending me different versions of different songs that people that have done. I really enjoy listening to that as well. But I don't think Richard or myself thought, when we saw how many YouTube views and people commented on the songs, I don't think he ever for 1 minute thought it would be as big as it is.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show the power of the music and how great those tracks are produced.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm still jamming with my car, just driving, listening to like It Doesn't Really Matter, cruising down the street. So it's good.
That's nice.
Also, the power of positivity. These tracks are, like you said, very very positive. They fill people with hope and inspiration. And I think that maybe at the time they were released, it was a more cool. It's not cool to be vulnerable, or it's not cool to be, like so sweet, and so maybe people looked at it that way. And now that people have grown up and we're all like, have kids and stuff, we realize, these tracks are actually really good, and there's nothing wrong with these lyrics. If it like my guilty pleasure on the Sonic R track is the credits track, number 1. It's like, all I need is you. I love that track. It's corny, but in a good way,
Yeah. Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with it. For me, with music, there's a lot of music snobbery, isn't there? There always is. I mean, you'll have somebody that says, oh, I can't believe that you're into that. And I don't think there should be. I think everybody should just listen to what they want to listen. It doesn't matter. It doesn't, as long as everybody has their own personal relationship with different songs. And I don't really like any sort of musical snobbery, and it does exist.
Yeah, elitism.
And I think pop gets a bad rap sometimes. I just think, really there's something there for everybody, isn't there? And that's what music should be, really.
Yeah, today's pop is tomorrow's sort of classical music and classical music piece. I mean, because the Beatles, going back to the Beatles, they're the same way. And ABBA, it's like the pop music and trash. And it's like nowadays these are like legendary bands that are probably going to go down in history the same way that Tchaikovsky and all those other people went down in.
Absolutely. There were certain artists that composers that they thought were ahead of their time, didn't they? And certain ones that were actually dismissed as well for being maybe too flimsy. And you look back now and you think, wow. But look at ABBA. Back to ABBA again, back in the sort of 70s and then early 80s. As soon as everything else, when music started to change, they were seen as. I remember being incredibly unpopular at one point at school. I was a massive ABBA fan when I was a kid. And I was still into stuff, and I was, I can't believe you're still into that sort of thing. And I became quite embarrassed by it, because it was seen as corny and it was seen as ridiculous. But now people look back, and so many artists have said they were influenced, and big artists influenced by ABBA, and you can hear it in some of the songs as well. So yeah, no musical snobbery for me.
Yeah, I got the same thing with the Beach Boys with Brian Wilson. It's like no, he's really good. It's not just surf music.
Oh gosh, amazing!
Oh no, he's a genius.
Amazing stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I'm glad it's sort of turning a little bit now with the internet. A lot of people say, "Oh, music is dead," but it's more alive than ever. We have people listening to everything. There's every single kind of combination of music, and just all these other people that just can't afford studios, just writing stuff in their bedrooms and producing music.
I think the way that it's going to work though now is because with artists not being able to go out and tour, streaming has got to change. The artist has got to start getting paid properly, and I think a lot of writers and artists are actually imploring people to go out. If you, by all means, use streaming to listen to lots and lots of different, types of music. But if you like something, go buy it, because then it'll keep it going, especially for new artists, people that are up and coming, and they're trying to get their stuff out there. They can't be giving it away for free all the time, because music industry's got to try and survive. And we've been really badly hit during this time. So I think it's important that happens, really, and it will. I think it's all being turned on its head at the moment, really.
Yeah, now with all the COVID and all this stuff, and it's just at a boiling point that these streaming services, I mean, they're paying artists pennies on the dollar, and it's like once all the trickle downs there, it's like artists don't get really anything. So I've been trying, at least my hardest, to sort of buy albums, and I know especially with nowadays, like a lot of people get into the vinyl stuff, and I think hopefully that's been helping out a little bit with that. Because
absolutely, it's funny, isn't it, how things come full circle? Really, everybody wants vinyl again. It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, it sounds great.
It does sound great. It sounds amazing.
And artists have always had the short end of the stick. The production companies and the record labels have always, it seems, gotten the better end of the deal. And I think I definitely want to echo what you said. If people out there enjoy music, they need to support the artists, and do it in the most direct way that they can. If the artist has a website, buy it from their website, give them the money so that which leads me to my other question is, you mentioned a future of TJ Davis recording, and possible future songs. Do you have a Patreon or anything where people can support your recording?
I haven't at the moment, but I do actually. It's something I want to do. What I've been doing in lockdown, I've been listening to a lot of old stuff that I did that I never released. I'd written loads and loads of songs ages and ages ago that I think, because I got busy with other things, and then I was touring and I was gigging, I was just earning a living, really. I put it on the back burner. I never really had an awful lot of confidence putting my own stuff out there, really. I was quite happy to sing other people's songs. But, I'm feeling a little bit different about it now, and I think it might be time for me to look at that. And a friend of mine is doing the Patreon? Patreon. And I think Gary Newton's doing it actually for his new album as well. So I've got plenty of people that as I'm still mates with Gary, and he can sort of steer me if I decide I want to do something like that anyway. But I need to get it together. I need to sort of give myself a kick to do it, really.
I'm sure there are a lot of fans that would be interested in supporting that.
Oh, I know. A few people have said that to me, and again, if I was to do something like that, I'd like to think that I could take lots of different styles of things I've done and rework some of the Sega songs. That's what I'd really like to do, and put them on there. That's what I'm hoping. Me and Richard have been talking about, hopefully doing something in the future. So when we can meet up and discuss it, that'll be good.
Yeah, and if you guys have any interest in releasing or trying to work with the Sonic R soundtrack and putting that on vinyl, I know a couple record guys that do the limited vinyl pressing stuff. So if you need like any people to talk to or work with Sega, you can hit me up and I can give you their contact info for that.
Fantastic. Well, I think that would all be down to sort of Sega, wouldn't it? Really. Anyway, I'm surprised they actually haven't really to put it out as a a proper soundtrack that people can buy, on vinyl, really. I'm quite surprised they haven't done that.
Yeah, they've done it for a couple other ones, like the Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 and some of the older ones, but I think a lot of the video game music still doesn't have like I guess a lot of people are worried that it might not sell as well, but I mean, with all these records coming out and the video game vinyl stuff being the biggest it is, I mean,
if Shaq is spinning it,
then if Shaq's spinning it, why not?
Absolutely.
They kind of sit on their IPs, though. They're kind of slow to drag out their older IPs and really put them to use. So this is one that I think would be a home run.
Mm-hmm.
Nice to think it'd do really well, wouldn't it? Really. Then maybe we could do a live show of it as well. That would be my dream.
Oh man, I'd have to fly to the UK to see it.
We'll do a SHIRO trip there.
We'll come to the US to do that. I think we should.
That would be amazing. We can at least dream.
I was curious if there was any difference between producing the game soundtrack versus the sort of like a studio album, if there's any like if you have to like loop, or you have to get it to loop or anything like that?
I wouldn't, to be honest. For me, no. I would say it was no different to anything else I've ever recorded. I mean, the way that obviously with vocals, it's something that every sort of producer has their different way of wanting something to sound a certain way. I know my vocal, we track my vocal quite a lot to make it sound as strong as it could be for the game. But no, there was nothing in particular that I could think of that was different. Just had to make sure that it all matched that little hedgehog running around.
Did you have, if you had you now have the opportunity to maybe pass along a message to all the fans that have sort of been playing that Sonic game and enjoying, your vocals all these years, what would you say to the fans?
Oh, do you know what? I think I'd say thank you for so much support. It's an absolute pleasure for me to hear how important those songs have been to people and how much joy they've got out of them. And if anybody ever wants to ask me anything, just catch me on Twitter and, or my website, get in touch. I love talking to everybody, and I'm really proud to have been a part of it.
So you said anything. So I'm going to ask you anything. This might be an outtake. But can you tell me about your PVC trousers and Gary Newman?
Well, that is a very strange question. What do you want me to say?
What? I read a blurb on your bio. This is not. I'm not digging up information. This is just available on your bio, and it was something about catching fire on stage with Gary Newman. He made you wear rubber pants or something like that. I just thought.
Oh no! He actually asked me when I first met him, did I have anything in rubber?
Oh, okay.
That's what he actually said. And I actually ended up with some PVC trousers that I did actually rip on one of the gigs.
Oh God, that would have been uncomfortable.
Yes, so that wasn't good. But yes, one of the first things that Gary ever asked me was, did I have anything in rubber?
Okay, so there wasn't anything with a fire or anything like that.
I don't think so. I don't know, unless somebody's.
My research was bad. There was also something about a backstage conversation with the Shiva tour manager that ended up on mic.
Oh, where did you get that from? Is this actually? Oh God, is this actually on my website?
Yes, it is.
All right. Okay, because I did actually talk about that, funnily enough, I think on Twitter a while ago. We were on a tour, and we were doing a gig, and things were going really badly. Nothing was going right, and it was one of the things. Everybody was tired. I didn't feel that we were being treated very well on the tour at the time. It was when dance music, and they were trying to do a bit of a live act, but it was all about the DJs, and obviously as a singer, that's actually quite difficult. And I was having one of those days that nothing was going right at all. And I'm normally quite, I don't normally sort of kick off at things, but we'd been sat there for 3 hours with nothing happening in this venue. And I could feel the tears coming, and I had a radio mic in my hand, and I passed it over to the tour manager and said, I need to go outside and have a breather, because I could feel the tears coming. I didn't want to cry. And I got outside, and he followed me out. And as he followed me out, I actually just said how I felt about everything, how I felt that we weren't, it wasn't fair. I didn't feel that, they were taking live music seriously on the gig, and I don't know why we were there. He had the microphone behind his back, and it was still live. Ooh. And everybody in the venue heard me. Two of the band members, one of them ran to the decks to try and turn my vocal down. The other one said, no, leave it, because everything she's saying is completely right. And we totally agree with her. She's saying how we all feel. But when I walked back in, nobody dared tell me that's what happened, but they'd all heard me.
God.
Very upset. So that was actually really embarrassing, and I felt awful after, but it is actually really funny now.
You can laugh about it now.
I didn't say anything that wasn't true, but I shouldn't have probably said. But yeah, he had the mic on behind his back, and he couldn't turn it off, so everybody heard what I was saying.
Oof. Hope were the things after that sort of get better at all, or was it?
It was just a bit frosty, I think, for that day. It was very sort of nobody really knew what to say. But funnily enough, after that, I told a friend of mine who was in the music industry, and he, at the time, there was a very big magazine called DJ Magazine, and he knew the editor, and he said they actually got in touch, and they said, you know, we're talking about the sort of the disparity between what DJs are being paid and how much live music's being, you know, they're being paid. And would you be willing to talk about it? And I didn't really, you know, I was upset at the time of how things were going, but I didn't really want to get into a big argument or anything of how things work in that industry. So I declined. But another band that were on the circuit at the same time as us they actually did an article in the magazine saying that it had to be fair how everything was being paid out, really, because live acts were being paid peanuts, basically. They weren't being paid much at all to do these tours. So, yeah. I sort of triggered a little bit of an argument there, but, you know.
That's a cool story, though, you know, after a long time.
Yeah. I think everybody's forgiven me now. I think it's fine. I don't think anybody, it's probably just me that cringes and remembers it. The rest of the band thought it was hysterical. So I'm sure it's fine.
Well, yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us and taking your time to talk to us about all this stuff.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Thank you so much.
It's been really nice. I've really enjoyed it. It's been nice talking to you.
We really feel that there wasn't a whole lot of history preservation in games back in that time. You know, people didn't really realize the importance of preserving these stories. And so we really feel that it's important to preserve the histories of the people that went into making these games, and even getting to talk to you and go further with your career and stuff like that. It really helps paint a picture for people. So when they hear the name TJ Davis, they don't just think it's an arbitrary name with a game. You know, they realize that, you know, you have a wide career, you know, and just it's really interesting talking to everybody that we've been very fortunate to be able to interview folks that have, you know, that have contributed in making these games. And so we're very honored to be able to preserve this history.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah. Also, did you have anything that you'd like to plug before we head out, just to sort of let people know what you're up to and sort of get some stuff?
Right now, I'm getting my head down a little bit and looking at doing some writing and recording. Obviously, the band that I work with, Dream, like I mentioned before, we're hopefully out on the road next year. I'm still doing lots of live work. That's what I'm hoping to do. But right now, it's just, I suppose, watch this space. That's where we're at the moment.
What's your Twitter handle if people want to follow you?
Teresa Jane Davis.
Teresa Jane Davis.
Yes.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's really nice to talk to you. Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yep. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Bye.